Ministry of Information and Communication Technology is concerned over the low public turnout for SIM card registration. Joining us now in studio is the ED of the Ministry, Dr. Audrey Mate. Very good evening to you, Doctor, and thank you so much for making time.
Thank you so very much.
Let's perhaps start off with what attributed to the low public turnout for SIM registration. I mean, this process started last year, and still we're talking about less than 30% that have registered. What do we attribute this to?
We will not know for sure, but perhaps it could be that the Namibian culture of waiting until the last minute to start rushing to do things. I mean, this process started last year already, so there was absolutely no reason for us to start even contemplating even to extend it. The second is that we don't think there's been enough mobilization from operators to ensure that the SIM cards are registered. That is why we've made it known now that I think we need to accelerate public outreach. If necessary, the operators must go out to the rural areas.
Yeah.
You find people who live 250 kilometers from the nearest point where they could have it registered. I mean, just to take a hike up to there may cost a lot of money for many people. So that's why we appeal to operators, and we have this conversation with the operators through the regulator to see whether they can actually go out on public outreach, get into the villages, get into the farms where it's tough for people to get into towns so that they can have their cards registered.
Absolutely.
This date really, they become immutable for that purpose. We don't want to create an impression that it's not doable. They were already asking for an extension in March when there were still about 9 months to go. I think there's still enough time for us to be able to do that, provided there's cooperation from both the operators and the users themselves, because the law is the law. When the deadline comes, then the phones will be cut off.
Last year, and I think until now, there have been concerns expressed about the need for biometric registration. How much do you think that has contributed to the registration apathy amongst SIM card holders? You know,
we've made it very clear that biometrics is not a requirement to have the card registered. The regulator Crane also come out publicly to say that. And we also seen some operators, not some, but operators also come to say that indeed that will not be a requirement to have the cards registered. It may very well have contributed to the fact that people did not want their private, what they regard as private data to be captured by third parties. But we want to make it clear again that anyone who wishes to have to register their SIM cards, there's no requirement that they have to submit for biometrics.
But why was it a requirement initially?
Well, the individual operators, they can speak for themselves. We can only say that that has not been a requirement from government side. And any requirement that must be the case, that needs to be reported to the regulator so that we can deal with those cases as they arise.
In the instance of individuals who did register with the biometrics, what guarantee do they have that that data is in safe hands and would not be used for other purposes?
I suspect those are some of the questions that are being asked by the general public. As you know, data protection law is not yet passed through Parliament. Once that has passed, perhaps to provide some clarity. But the context in which we are now is that we want to ensure that there is huge turn-up with regards to the drive for SIM card registration. Therefore, no one should be required as a matter of cost to ensure that to take biometrics. Because that's always not a requirement, and we discourage anyone who does that. And they should be reported to the regulator, as I mentioned earlier.
All right. Mandatory registration, of course, is also to bring Namibia on par with the international standards. Some other countries, know India, for example, has been very successful in implementing that. What lessons can we perhaps draw from countries like India and others who have made this a success?
Indeed, I think if there's any other country that has not done that, it's probably us. And I think there's a reason for that. One is to discourage the commission of crime through unanimous use of cards which are not registered. I mean, someone was threatening me also to say that I'm going to cut me in sizes. Because that number is not registered anywhere, you can't trace it. A couple of years ago, a Sanlam building has to be evacuated because someone made a phone call and say there's going to be a bomb in that area. Fraud generally. So that's why we say that please let's do this. I know that there's a few individuals who feel that they should not be subjected to this. but there's no law for general public, and then a law for journalists or for nurses. The law is going to apply equally to everybody else, whether a journalist, whether a lawyer, whether whatever work that you do. There is a legal requirement to have your SIM card registered. If that should not be followed, by 31st of December, those cards that have not been registered, they become defunct. That will mean that you can't use cellular banking. Yeah. You can't do a transaction with a phone, because that phone really will have a little value if it is no SIM card attached to it.
So in a statement today, you did mention that that is going to be final come 31st of December. If your SIM is not registered officially, then it's over for you.
You see, when you play a soccer game, you don't ask for extra time before you reach 90 minutes. You reach 90 minutes, then the referee to determine whether there's going to be extra time required. Yeah. So why are we raising the issue now? I think the priorities must be that we must go out and have our cards registered.
But in the instance of, you alluded to the fact that there are people who are living in rural areas, there are people who are up in the farms. How do we speed up the process and mobilize resources to ensure that these people also have a fair chance to register their SIMs, and not have my grandmother wake up one day and she can't make a phone call, she can't send an SMS? How do we go about that?
There's genuinely a case to be made for that. You know, as I mentioned, at your village, you have to travel 200 kilometers plus to get to the nearest point. So I think that's where we're asking for the operators to actually go out in those villages and ensure that people come and register people on the spot. But then you have people that live in town like yourself. I don't know whether your card is registered. So we have to start with people that are in urban areas as well, to ensure that we actually be the first ones, because you have absolutely no reason why your card cannot be registered. It's a matter of you getting into a town, submit yourself to whatever it is that the operators require.
Absolutely.
Have that card registered. It's as simple as that. It may very well be that it reduces the burden on operators having to visit everybody else. So we should rather prioritize the people, the elderly that live in far rural areas where there is no contact with the POPs.
Absolutely. Mr. Oduramati, thank you. Dr. Oduramati, I beg your pardon.
Thank you. It doesn't make a difference for me.
Thank you so much for your time. Highly appreciate it.